I've got a secret. Time machines are real. And they're as plain as the nose on your face. We're talking about our olfactory, folks, and time travel via our sense of smell. I'm Victor, and straight out of the Gen Experience, the everyday smells that wafted by were just like the soundtrack of our lives, but in odor. Firmly placing us back in time, I only wish you could scratch and sniff your screen, because this is gonna reek of the 1980s. If you think this is gonna be fun, then click and like, and consider subscribing for more great content from the Gen Experience. Now let's get smelling. Do you have zits? No problem. Just use the home chemical scrub found in the soft pad loaded with burning benzoyl peroxide. I don't know about you, but I just don't hear enough about benzoyl peroxide anymore. The smell of rubbing alcohol in puberty stripped your face with harsh chemicals found in pimple pads like Oxy and Stridex. And that was just part of our morning routine. That was relatively tame compared to many young people's final touch, the overdose of CFCs and the strong scent from the pastel can, Aquanet. Not only did the smell linger longer than lungs could handle, but you most likely got a mouthful of this poisonous gas. But all glammed up, you were ready for school. Practicing folding the skinny-ass strip of gum onto your tongue like the big boys in the commercial was just part of the experience. Cinnamon, or should I say artificial cinnamon flavor, had found its place with consumers in various treats, and Big Red gum was one of our favorites. Big Red was literally bigger than those other wimpy pieces found in the likes of Dentine. Big Red was the tough gum and a favorite with its catchy jingle that encouraged you to do things, anything, a little longer. These commercials were as memorable as the flavor. That lasted only 3 minutes. But that's 3 minutes longer than Bazooka gum. Bubblicious Watermelon comes a close second, but Big Red stands out on its own. Where have all the gum commercials gone? Do you smell failure? That's liquid paper. After f***ing up your report you wrote or completed on the electronic typewriter before correction ribbon. Fix your mistakes with a little swipe of liquid paper. Just make sure it dries completely before you write on it again. Liquid paper was an original correction aid for writing, invented by Betty Nesmith, the mother of the monkey's very own Michael Nesmith. Now, of course, there was whiteout. That was by Bic. But just like Kleenex is what we call any kind of tissue we need, whiteout was the generic name for any correction fluid or tape. Since anything that smells like paint is followed by a contact high, I'm sure the stores have this one under lock and key today. Wait, does this even still exist? And if so, why? So when blunders were made in the 80s, and boy there were a lot, whiteout was the fixer, even if it was liquid paper. Toys are big business by the 80s, and when I say big, I mean huge, with franchises still alive today. With jumps in toy production technology, the incredible and memorable scent of new plastic toys upon opening their box or blister card was an ever-present and consistent aroma of 100% injected molded plastic that memory dreams are made of. Like a brand new car smell, it invoked emotion and excitement, and then a week later, just like that, the smell was gone. At least you got a new toy more often than a new car. Sometimes the toy went a step beyond the simple plastic encased in more plastic and added a cherry on top of extra long-lasting scent that very often smelled of, well, cherry. Some secret laboratory-produced scent could be added to the plastic mixture before molding, and specialty toys with an odor gimmick would be created, like in the case of Strawberry Shortcake and her friends, with their delicate and fancy dessert smells. Or the Masters of the Universe action figures, Stinkor and Mossman, who smell like, well, patchouli and pine, respectively. This recognizable new plastic smell wasn't limited to just toys. It could also be found on your Trapper Keeper. Love 'em or hate 'em, this new flavor of Doritos had to be tried when it debuted in 1986. We were all fans of the tried and true nacho cheese Doritos for as long as we could remember, but their first big departure had to be tasted to be believed. Tearing open some Cool Ranch Doritos hit your olfaction senses hard with a punch of strong ranch herb goodness. Scarfing up a bag on a Friday night with friends, you would determine if you were Camp Ranch or still a hardcore nacho cheese lover. Me, it all depends on the mood I'm in. What about you? Will you indulge in Cool Ranch or other flavors of this 80s staple snack food? It's hard to believe it was legal to inhale the intense chemical curling agent of an 80s perm. Both men and women would poodle curl their hair for the tight ringlet look and style it in various ways. Even a mullet wasn't out of the question. It would take a trip to the salon and hours of dedication to the harsh compound treatment to achieve that permanent wave. Unless, of course, you were going to try a home perm, which was flirting with disaster. More often than not, the perm itself lent to tragic results. It may not have been as dangerous as breathing in peroxide all day when bleaching, but that unmistakable odor not only curled your nose hairs, but was a reminder that the answer to a new do was a permanent one.
To be close to. And nobody knows that better than a woman. Brut. It smells like a man.
It smells like a man because the scent is a product of Carlman, when in 1968 Brut cologne was produced by Fabergé. By the 1980s, with ultra masculinity in top form, it was what every man wore, as if it was the only choice in deodorant and fragrance they had. It became like everything else overused, and when confronted with it through the entire 70s and 80s, it became derided, cliché, a joke. It's not really a bad smell, and who can forget its spicy hints of anise, basil, Tonka trucks, campfires, patchouli, sandalwood, 10W40, and yingling. I mean bang bang. No, ylang ylang. Yeah, a sweet scented essential oil obtained from the flowers of a tropical tree. Which tree? That's anybody's guess. Remember when the closer you got to every girl, the more you smelled strawberry and cherry. That's because they wore various fruit-flavored lip glosses. Lip smackers and even kissing sticks by Maybelline were lip smacking good. I'm not sure young girls were wearing these due to any incessant makeout sessions they were having, but more likely because they wanted a snack between meals, as the flavors were delicious. To anyone who started kissing at this time and was lucky enough to discover that kissing a girl was just like a bowl of Fruity Pebble cereal, you realized what you were missing. Speaking of cereal, Fruit Loops, Fruit Brut, and even Strawberry Shortcake cereal had one thing in common. Sugar. Obviously. Lots and lots of sugar. How could we survive a Saturday without it? It kept us motivated and gave us energy to survive. The thing is, unless it was a chocolate-flavored cereal like an artificially sweetened Cocoa Puffs, the brightly colored quote-unquote fruit-flavored cereal all had the same smell. And it wasn't fresh fruit. The burst of a fine powder of sucrose escaping the air-sealed inner liner of a fun-filled box of cereal is enough to take us back to quiet Saturday morning cartoons. If you wanted that aroma in concentrate, just wait until the box is empty, except for that cereal pumice at the bottom corner of the bag. Take a whiff and pour it in. The smell of that crunchy goodness was just part of the requirement to a complete breakfast, so we were told, and was as common as a McDonald's commercial between cartoons. Of course, we never had a complete breakfast, just 2 bowls of Trix. Oh, and if that fruit-flavored sugar cereal is unfamiliar, it's exactly the same smell as our favorite 80s weekend refresher, Kool-Aid. Camel was not just a cartoon character, although the company would be happy for you to believe that. Winston Camel cigarettes and their instantly recognizable mascot is one odor you just can't ignore. A product you put in your mouth that looked suspiciously like a male body part was just as noxious as any other cigarette. As one of the most popular during the era, the odor of fresh cigarette smoke seemed to all blend together with the dozens of other brands, but it was the old stale smell of cigarettes you can never forget, although it is getting easier and easier these days. Another significant aroma that brings us back to the 80s and even the 70s is the meat department of our neighborhood Safeway. Enough said. Now think back and think hard. After playing Nintendo for hours and pulling out the cartridge to change the game, there was that unrivaled and distinct odor of charged dust particles on electronics. That smell you get the instant you yank the game from the console, or even more so, when you pull it closer to your face in that moment right before the necessary blowing on the warmed circuit board just peeking out from the bottom of the rectangular electronic. That one may be easily forgotten, but never duplicated. New clothes have a smell, but that hasn't changed much over time. What's changed is the mall, or the lack thereof, or more realistically, the time we spend in one. But because the malls of the 80s are a dying breed, with it goes one of the most common smells of the 1980s. French fries and food courts. Grease for hot golden brown fries being dunked over and over again. In boiling oil, nobody knows when was changed last at our favorite McDonald's or Burger King. An Orange Julius and Nathan's hot dog awaited you in a gastronomical war zone of competing odors and aromas. What was your food court favorites? Sparrow? Morrison's? Tell us in the comments. You could smell an Orange Julius as much as the sweet treats from caramel corns, alongside the hot dog on a stick. Even with the cacophony of sickening smells, the concession quality food of an 80s food court is an odor you never forget. On a much more pleasant note, there were the diverse fragrances of a popular trend in the early 80s. You might remember sticker trading, about the lamest hobby we indulged in at the time. You might trade oilies, moodies, or even satins, but the scratch and sniff was the top banana. Speaking of banana, that was a popular favorite of the scratch and sniff stickers. There was no shortage of these fingernail activated scented stickers. Often used as positive reinforcement from your teacher, they soon joined the rank of popular stickers and sticker books to trade with friends. Which did you want? Which did you need? These scents ran the gamut between root beer and popcorn and grape to dill pickle. The scents weren't all that bad, and fairly realistic from what I remember, like watermelon. Pickle was one of my favorites, but each time I smelled one, I couldn't help but get hungry. It was the next best thing when lunch was still far off. Coconut, cocoa butter, banana. No, not a pina colada, but Hawaiian tropic suntan oil. The next best thing to a drink is a walnut brown tan, am I right? So says the 80s with one of the most iconic, loved, and scent-instigated time machine creations. Beach culture was all over the TV and radio. Leveraging the active lifestyle and outside activity sought by the teen and young adult audience, nothing was more wholesome than an even brown tan, and Hawaiian tropic had you covered. Well, someone would have to cover you, and meeting a hottie to spread that oil over your body was just part of the fun. Get out your beach towel and the reflector to catch some rays. Like bacon on a griddle, rows of scantily clad boys and girls sizzle and began the process of leathering their hides for a future of regret and skin conditions. But hell, Hawaiian Tropic's strong fragrance of coconut and cocoa butter smelled like the beach and good time memories. While darkening our dermis, we lightened our locks with Sun-In. Malibu Barbie must have been very influential, or at least the constant barrage of the Sunshine State in everything had us California dreaming. To get the brassy blonde, just pump some Clorox bleach, Sun-In, right onto your hair, and while sunbathing, you killed two birds with one stone, not to mention some skin cells. Sun-In had a subtle but distinctive scent that told your friends you were part of the in crowd. You'd bear the strong odor of peroxide just for the FOMO. Yes, FOMO was around back then. We just didn't have social media to beat us senseless with it 24/7. Perhaps sweat activated, these hot and humid plastic masks with the completely unsafe eye holes seemed to smell even stronger the more we perspired. Of course, these hotbox Halloween costumes were all the rage to represent your favorite franchise for trick-or-treating. Pulling out the thick plastic bodysuit piece that never looked like the character, but just emblazoned with a huge picture of their face, you knew this was going to be hot. If you knew the struggle of a Ben Cooper branded costume, that was a rite of passage for kids across America. Once you snapped that thin rubber band around your head and sported the soulless-eyed mask of your favorite TV or cartoon hero, the limited vision came with the unmistakable smell of vacuum-formed plastic that kept your face like the inside of a greenhouse while perspiration puddled at the chin of the mask to dribble out on occasion. This plastic smell was strong, stronger than an action figure, and not as pleasant, not by a long shot. Even non-plastic playthings got into the action. They may not have had the newly opened action figure smell from a blister card, but a Cabbage Patch Kid came with more than adoption papers, and a tattoo of the slightly peculiar creator Xavier Roberts on their butt. They came infused with baby powder. I'm not sure how they did it, but it was like the baby doll was in a perpetual state of diaper changing, with an entire bottle full of that light fragrance of babyhood coming out of every hug. Speaking of infused, why would she let any possible angle escape her? If Cabbage Patch Kids can do it, Madonna can infuse her Like a Prayer album with patchouli oil. I will admit I had the album on cassette, and surprisingly, that puppy smelled like an outdoor market in Marrakesh. Both the tape cassette itself and the insert with all the lyrics were saturated with the strong scent of flower children, and was what we considered to be the product of witchcraft. How on earth did they get this to smell like Woodstock?
The world may never know.
There's nothing like our nasal time machine. Out of nowhere, hit with an unexpected scent, you're suddenly propelled back to a happy place. A simple time that makes you smile, pause, and think, I used to smell that all the time. What was it again? Some of these are very foreign scents today, and others we might still smell on occasion. Either way, they do take us back. What about you? What was your favorite here, and what is an odor you remember fondly from the 1980s that I couldn't include on my list, or else I'd be rambling way too long? Tell us all in the comments, and then check around the channel for incredible other adventures from the Gen Experience. I certainly hope you subscribe, and clicking like and sharing helps too. Don't miss the Gen Experience store to peruse, and thank you all for coming to watch. Until next time.